know what your past is, embrace the possibilities through your past for the future. And so as you think through your epitaph, your eulogy, your tribute, it's the heart of who and how you want to be remembered. Hello, my friend, and welcome to this Friday episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm so glad you are here. It's an honor and a privilege to walk with you along your leadership journey. And that's what this show is all about. This show is about leadership in business, in family, and life. And so my life's work is around the field, the subject, the study of leadership, undergraduate, graduate, my doctoral work, all around business and family leadership, servant leadership, transformational leadership, ethical leadership, authentic leadership, transactional leadership, so many different approaches to leadership and many, many, many more. And so what we do every Friday is we focus on one tool for your leadership toolbox. That's it. No more, no less. So I am so thankful for you. This moment we get to spend together. And I want to focus on this episode, very special episode. And I want to throw a shout out. I recently got a text message from one of my coaching students who's also a business client and has become a dear friend, this individual and his family. Just embrace this group. You ever meet people and they're just your people? They are awesome, just amazing folks who are salt of the earth, just good folks. Well, this family has been near and dear. And I got a text the other day that said, "Hey, Nate, I've been listening to your podcast and I noticed that on some of your episodes, you ask a guest what they would like to be remembered by on the Great Summit. And if you've listened to any of my Wednesday episodes, it's not every single episode, but there are episodes where I feel it's appropriate to ask, one day you'll be on that great summit, the very end of the journey of your life. What's one thing you will want people to have said about you?" Sometimes the guest is right on with it. Boom. They just answer the question. They know exactly what they want to be remembered by. Others take time to process, think about it. It's a very weighty question and it's out of left field. I never prep people for this question. And my friend said, I'm starting to see a pattern emerge. And he said, "I'd like to one day hear what you would say. I'm looking forward to that." I said, maybe, just maybe, I'll record an episode just on that subject. So if you listen to the end, I'm going to share what I would want to be remembered, how I would want to be remembered. What's one thing someone or some group or how I would like to have been, I would like to have people have said about me. But before I do that, I want to explain why that's important. Why is it important to be able to articulate that, to extract that question out of our minds and into our words, into our thoughts, and then eventually they become into our deeds. And the reason is, and I take this from an old book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You've heard me talk about Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey. If you've listened to enough episodes on the show, I've referenced some of his work, and he talks about different habits. Well, one habit that he talks about that highly effective people have is to begin with the end in mind. Maybe you've heard that before. Maybe it's new. And what that means is start at the end. In other words, what is my destination? Where am I going? What we're talking about, friend, is vision, right? What is my vision for the future? And so if I can clearly articulate where I desire to go, what is my best outcome, then that is the trajectory of my life. So it's so important to ask the question, what is it that I would want people to have said about me when I'm at the very end of this amazing journey called life? And so if I can articulate that, then that will give me a very clear picture of where I desire to go. Not only that, that's important. The other part of that is, or one of the other parts is this. Once I've articulated a vision for the future, then the decisions I make will order the steps on that trajectory. You see? So say, for example, your trajectory is to be remembered for being charitable. One of the aspects, one of the pillars, one of the foundational principles of your life will to be remembered for charity. Perhaps someone listening, that's you. So then when you order your steps, you will consider charity every step of the way in your journey of life. Perhaps fidelity is important to you. Having, steadfastness and having commitment is important to you. Then the decisions you make, if you want to be remembered for that, your epitaph, so to speak, your eulogy, your tribute, the final breath of who you are, then the decisions you make will be organized around that. And if you are troubled about a decision to make, you measure it against the trajectory that you're on. In fact, next week, Wednesday, we're going to have an interview with Mike McCloskey, and Mike will talk about the trajectory. He'll talk about I just recorded this amazing episode. What an interview where he talks about if you're just 1% off, 1 degree off, we're talking about on a journey, then by the time you get to where you're going, you may be an entire continent off. Okay. So the point is that the idea, if I stay true to my trajectory and if I make course corrections to my trajectory, then I will eventually reach my state that I desire in my vision. And that's why vision is so important. I've talked about this on several episodes, and I will continue to bring this up. And vision is the starting point for us. Begin with the end in mind. You say, Nate, I don't know what my future will hold. I don't know a lot of the specifics. I'm not asking for that. Of course, there's going to be so many twists and turns. However, at your very core, what are the essentials to be remembered by? Perhaps you want to be remembered as a father or a mother, a parent who didn't miss their child's childhood. Perhaps your parents were not there at every game, or were traveling, or perhaps were not married or divorced or absentee, or you didn't have visitation rights, all kinds of, or perhaps a parent passed away, all kinds of reasons that you may not have had that in your life. And you want to give that to your child. In fact, I remember watching a program on J.W. Marriott, the iconic hotel magnate. And in the interviews, one of the interviews was of Marriott's son, who was, I think, in his late 50s or early 60s during the time of the interview. And this individual, as much as Dad was going around the world and building these beautiful hotels, his memory of his dad wasn't there. And that stuck with me. And I thought to myself, man, This is before I even had any children. I don't know that I don't want to be that dad. I don't want to be that dad who's remembered, whose epitaph, whose tribute is, he wasn't there. I will have to then make sacrifices in my business life, in other areas of my life, to make room, margin, space to spend time with my son. And now, don't get me wrong, this has not always been the case. I have missed it at times. In fact, one time, I don't know, my son was about 4 or 5 years old. And if you've heard the program, I may have told this story once or twice. It's such a milestone in my life that I have to explain this. So I come home from work and he says, "Dad, would you sit down?" I said, "Okay, I'll sit down." And he says, "Dad, I got to tell you something important." I said, "Okay, what's that, son?" He said, "Dad, I don't need any more stuff." I was like, "Okay, all right." And then he hits me right between the rib cage. He said, "Dad, I just need more of your time." Oh, talk about shot to the chest, man, dagger. My goodness. And then he said, I'll even sell my toys if we need the money." Whew. Boyfriend, let me tell you, if that doesn't wake you up. But what it did was, for me, it reframed my priorities, because I want to be the dad who will be remembered as present, not just present in bodily form, but fully present, engaged. And that's not always easy. It's not always easy as a person who has a very active business life and very active endeavors. I have very little margin in my day for error, if you will. So I build margin and I build opportunity in to spend time with those who I love. Because, friend, I know that when I'm on my great summit at the very end, I don't want to be remembered as the guy who just wasn't present for those he loved. I don't want to be remembered for that. So it sets my priority, because that's my vision, beginning with the end in mind. It's so important. Identify those core principles that you will stand by, because that is how you want to live your life. I wasn't the guy who wanted to be remembered as the one who had the biggest coffers when I passed away. So my philosophy was, he who has the least last wins. Now you say, "Nate, what does that mean?" It means that I don't want to just accumulate wealth so that when I die, it's just a lot of money that is just accumulated. I want to be able to give while I live. That's important to me. I don't want to wait. What if I live to be, I don't know, 80, 85 years old, right? I don't know how long I'll live. I could die today. But say I live to be 80, right? And at the time of this recording, I'm 50. So another 30 years. Why wait 30 years to bless someone? This is me, friend. This isn't you or anyone else, but this is, so I'm explaining how I want to be remembered, right? I don't want to be remembered as that guy that had a ton of money when he died and he didn't bless anyone along the way. I want to be a good steward of what I'm entrusted with. Now, that doesn't mean I want to be frivolous. I want to be wise, but I want to give. So when I have someone has a need and I can, and it makes sense, I will. I try to give everyone who asks. I try to give something, and I want to make sure this is clear. Even the person who is asking for money on the side of the road, if I've got something to give, I'm going to give. The one who is at the grocery store, the $1 for this or round up for that, sure, I'm good for that, right? Pay it forward. Pay somebody's McDonald's behind me I don't always do it, but when I remember, hey, I'm going to pay for the people behind me. It's not that I'm trying to boast in what I'm giving. The point is that I just want to illustrate that even if nobody ever knows about it, it doesn't matter. God knows. And I just want to have a pure heart. I don't always have a pure heart. I don't always get it right. In fact, I get it wrong often. And I haven't always been this way. I've been so selfish, so worried. So I've had such a poverty and scarcity mindset for so many years of my life. I was in bondage. I was worried about the little I had, and I grasped onto it so tightly, and I would not give anything up. And I was living in fear, friend. I remember times where I would not take the kind of action that needed to be taken in my life so that I could aim higher and better. And it took a radical change. In fact, I was doing a lot of really dumb stuff in my life when I was a teenager and when I was in my early 20s. I was just in trouble. I was just my friend group and traveling around doing some of the dumbest things as a lot of people do. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and we were getting locked up when we were teenagers for curfew, and perhaps one of the guys was spray painting, and we got pulled over, and the cops saw that there was spray paint on one of the kids' shoes, and everybody had to go to jail. I'm like, why am I hanging out with these guys? I'm in jail. I got to spend the night there because one of my buddies had spray paint on shoes. He might not have even been spray painting graffiti. He might have just been painting something in his house. It doesn't matter. That's just the way things were. Well, in that environment, I learned the hustle, and I was just doing a lot of dumb stuff. I was always getting in trouble. And it was almost like God was saying, look, I'm not letting you get by with stuff. I mean, not only that, I got in trouble for speeding. I had a lead foot. I was always driving too fast. And eventually the judge said, son, you don't need to be driving anymore. I'm going to hold on to your license for a while. I had 12 points on my license. This is before I even knew about lawyers, that lawyers could take care of points on a ticket. But nonetheless, I haven't had a ticket in, I don't know, 10, 20 years maybe now. So all is well. But growing up around that, I was making all kinds of mistakes with my life, and I was going in totally the wrong direction. And I'll tell you more and more as this show progresses, because there's a ton more of just bonehead moves I was making over the years. And I tell you that to tell you this, that I was so focused on me. I was so focused on just existing that I couldn't focus on truly living in purpose, truly growing, and having the fear and the scarcity. I grew up poor. If you've listened to this show, you've heard this before. Single mom, parents were divorced young. It was rough. And so being generous was like out of the equation, right? I was the charity case. But it was because others were generous with me and gave, including my mom, who had when we were together before my mom remarried and my wonderful brother and my wonderful sister were born, there were days where, there was just enough. And sometimes there wasn't enough. Sometimes she didn't eat. And I observed that. I observed her sacrifice for her son. Her just focus on just to survive. And that impressed upon me. And when I was in a place where I could then give, I desired to give. So when we think about vision isn't just about the future. Vision is just as much about the past. It's just as much about the ideals that we live in and grow from in the past. Sometimes we don't have a difficult past. Sometimes someone listening has had a wonderful life. You've had great parents. You've had a very stable home environment, a lot of healthy memories in your life. I call you preserved. You were preserved and protected. And that to me is inspiring because that's the environment I would like to create in my own family with my wife and my son. Because my wife and I, we were not preserved. We both grew up in broken homes, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of trauma. And growing out of that, we learned that our pain reframed our purpose, and it became the power to make progress. And so that vision is based on the past, just as well as the individual who lives in a home environment that's safe and harmonious. That past life informs the future vision. And so it's so important to understand our past and not let it control us in bondage if we have had trauma. And I want to be very careful and very sensitive to this because some people are in such a rough place right now because of the trauma they've faced in the past. I get it. And sometimes we need people to bind around us, whether they be friends, family, whether they be the professional medical community, psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. All of these individuals are helpful to walk us through, to help us to find healing through empathy, through listening. Yet, at the same time, our past struggles can strengthen our struggle muscles to create a new vision for a better future state. And that vision then can compel us. It can compel us to grow, to adapt, to overcome, to live in courage, to have vulnerability, to author a better future state. All of that is important. So dig in, know what your past is, embrace the possibilities through your past for the future. And so as you think through your epitaph, your eulogy, your tribute, it's the heart of who and how you want to be remembered. So for me, if I were to be asked that on my show, and my double of me would say, Nate, one day you will be on that great summit. At the end of the journey, you'll have seen everything that you've done, every person you've interacted with, every relationship and bond you've formed, every foundation that you've laid, and everything that's been built with your hands. And you see all of that, and you're at the very end. What is one thing? How would you want to be remembered? And so for me, I would certainly take a few moments to think about this because it is deep. It is weighty, just as I would ask you. And then I would say, I would want to be remembered very simply. I would want to be remembered in this order: friend to all, loving father, devoted husband, man of God. That's it, friend. That's how I would want to be remembered. Now, that says volumes, right? That says, boy, how do I have to live my life then to be remembered in that way? How do I have to order my steps to be remembered that way? However, if I can keep that top of mind as I make decisions in life, as I charter my course in my daily direction, that vision of the future will then order my steps. It'll organize my day. So then I see on my calendar, is this moving toward or moving away from friendship, from being a loving father, being a devoted husband, being a man of God? how in the world could I ever live any differently than that epitaph once I extract it from my heart and into my head and out of my hands? Friend, it's powerful, so powerful when we can embrace a vision for our future that's compelling. And not only that, once we begin to share it with others, I would encourage you, write it down, put it on a Post-it on your, if you work in an office or you have a desk, put it on a Post-it, put it right there. Write an epitaph out, frame it, share it, live it. That, my friend, is a powerful way to express who you are, where you're going, and what is eminently important to you. Well, I hope this message spoke to you today. I know that we can go so far if we start with the end in mind and build a vision for the future that is far, far greater than what we could ever accomplish had we not extracted it from our mind and into practice. Well, my friend, I'm so glad we spent time together. Be living your vision so that one day it will come true, for you will be certainly on your way. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, and this is a call to leadership. Well, my friend, you're going to have to wait until next week to tune in to hear about the meetings and the people and the stellar teams we create by eliminating the waste of waiting. But you don't have to wait to hear the show again, because this Wednesday, an expert will come on to talk more about leadership. I'm so glad you're here. You mean so much to this program, and I can't wait to be with you again.